1997, hip hop was at war. The East Coast versus West Coast conflict was still echoing through that culture. The South was beginning its rise, and in Cleveland, five young men who had already reshaped rap's very sound were preparing to make their own boldest statement yet. Bone Thugs and Harmony had climbed from the shadows of the Midwest to the top of the Billboard charts. With 1999, Eternal, and The Crossroads, they had become household names. But with success came imitators. Rappers borrowed their flows, copied their harmonies, and threatened their lane. So Bone decided to respond the only way they knew how, through music. A double album, a declaration, a warning, the art of war. This is the story behind the art of war, World War I, a record born from loss, rivalry, ambition, and the hunger to prove that Bone's style could never be cloned. To understand the art of war, you have to understand that it started in Cleveland, Ohio. In the early 90s, the city wasn't on the hip-hop map. Nobody was looking for Cleveland. New York had the crown. The West Coast had its G-Funk dominance. The South was starting to steer. But Cleveland, no one thought it could produce a movement until five young men changed that. Crazy, Lazy, Busy, Wish, Flesh. Together, they formed Bone Thugs and Harmony. Their style was unlike anything rap had ever seen. Rapid-fire flows blended with harmonies, melodies sung as much as they was rapped. It was street poetry delivered like a choir of hustlers. Their journey began with Faces of Death, a self-released project in 1993. But the real break came when they caught the attention of Eazy-E, the godfather of gangster rap, who saw the potential immediately. He signed them to Ruthless Records, becoming both a mentor and gateway to the industry. With Creeping on the Come Up released in 1994, and then the full-length project E1999 Eternal in 1995, Bone Thugs became a phenomenon. Their single, The Crossroads, not only dominated the charts, but won them a Grammy. They had taken Cleveland to the world stage and proven their sound was revolutionary. But with success came something else, imitation. Rappers from Chicago, Houston, Memphis, even established stars became experimenting their sound and tried to duplicate it like Bone Thugs' triplet flows and melodic cadence. Suddenly, the very style Bone Thugs had invented was everywhere, and that set the stage for conflict. By 1996, Bone Thugs weren't just artists anymore. They were innovators fighting to protect their sound, their reputation, and their place in the game. In 1995, on March, Eazy-E had passed away due to health complications related to AIDS and HIV. But Ruthless was under new leadership, and Bone Thugs was about to craft an album that would be both a warning and a weapon. That weapon was the art of the war, and the first battle will be fought on World War I. In March of 1995, hip-hop lost one of his architects, Eric Eazy-E Wright. The man who had given Bone Thugs their shot died suddenly from complications to AIDS. For Bone, it wasn't just a label boss that passed. It was a father figure, a mentor, and their biggest believer. Eazy-E had discovered them when no one else would listen. He saw genius in their harmonies, their pace, their energy. His vision gave them legitimacy, and his death left a void not just in their personal lives, but in their career. With Eazy-E now gone, control of Ruthless Records passed down to his widow, Tamika Woods Wright. For Bone, this meant a new business dynamic. The label wanted to keep momentum going, but the relationship wasn't as close or as personal as it once been with Eazy-E around. Suddenly, the group faced pressure to deliver another massive hit, while also navigating creative tension with their new leadership. Bone Thugs was still grieving, but the industry doesn't stop. By late 1995 and 1996, they were touring heavily off the success of E1999 Eternal and their smash single The Crossroads. The Grammy win made them global stars, yet behind the scenes, strain was growing. Demands were high, expectations were even higher. In 1996 and 1997, Bone Thugs locked in with longtime producer DJ U-Neck. What they built will be massive, a double album packed with 28 tracks. Also, around this time, a lot of artists were putting out double disc CDs, such as Tupac with All Eyes on Me, Wu-Tang with Wu-Tang Forever, and the Notorious B.I.G. with Life After Death. In the mid-90s, hip-hop was obsessed with scale. Tupac had delivered All Eyes on Me back in February as a double-disc CD. The Notorious B.I.G. was preparing to drop Life After Death. For a group as ambitious as Bone, a single album wouldn't be enough. They wanted something bigger than life, a statement big enough to drown out imitators and cement their place in the rap's elite. So they turned their concept into war, not just in title, but in structure. 2 discs, 2 campaigns, World War I and World War II. Together, 28 tracks that span radio-ready singles, menacing street anthems. This is aimed at their rivals and showcases for their Mo Thugs affiliates. But behind the creative ambition, there was strategy. A double album meant more content, more shelf life, and doubled the publishing royalties. It was as much a business decision as it was an artistic one. Bone and Ruthless wanted to dominate the charts and flood the market with their sound before imitators could. Producer DJ U-Next served as the album's general, manning the boards for nearly every track. His production created a warlike atmosphere, dark piano keys, eerie synths, and slow haunting bass lines. The sound was designed to be cinematic, almost apocalyptic, the perfect backdrop for Bone Thugs' harmonized assaults. On World War I, the first disc, Bone Thugs set the tone. This was a side meant to open the conflict. It contained the mainstream hit, Look Into My Eyes, but it also carried the aggression with disses, threats, and warnings to groups they felt had stolen their style. If East's 1999 Eternal was about spiritual struggles between heaven and hell, The Art of War was about earthly battles against labels, rivals, and time itself. The decision to release a massive project wasn't without risk. Double albums are notorious for bloat, for repetition, but Bone Thugs saw it differently. To them, the volume wasn't a weakness, it was the whole point. They wanted to overwhelm the competition. And for fans, it meant immersion. 2 hours inside Bone Thugs' world, a world of paranoia, defiance, loyalty, and harmony. World War I wasn't just the first disc. It was the opening barrage of a campaign Bone Thugs believed would redefine their legacy. And soon, they will release their first missile to the public, the lead single, a track tied to a major Hollywood blockbuster, the song that carried Bone Thugs' harmonies into living rooms around the world, Look Into My Eyes. At the core of The Art of War was DJ U-Next, Bone Thugs' trusted producer, collaborator, and sonic architect. From Keeping on the Come Up to E 1999 Eternal, he had been responsible for sculpting that eerie, otherworldly sound. But on The Art of War, the mission was different. This wasn't just about the atmosphere, it was about aggression. Bone's flows were already rapid, melodic, and impossible to imitate. U-Next's role was to create canvases wide enough for them to stack harmonies, double-time verses, and eerie chants without losing clarity. As the beats weren't crowded, they were skeletal, atmospheric, leaving space for Bone's vocal to act as a true instrument. Songs like Ready for War and Handle the Vibe showcase a balance of chaos and control. The production had to feel unstable, dangerous, but also hypnotic. The goal was immersion. 2 full discs of sound that felt like stepping into Bone's Cleveland universe during wartime. Bones felt like they were under siege, with imitators stealing their style, critics doubting their artistry, and internal pressures from Ruthless Records. The group used U-Next production as their artillery. Each track became a bullet fired, each hook a battle cry. The lead single, Look Into My Eyes, was a calculated move. Released in June of 1997, it wasn't just a Bone Thugs song. It was tied to the soundtrack of Batman and Robin, one of the summer's biggest blockbuster films. The partnership meant visibility beyond rap into movie theaters, MTV primetime, and even pop culture at large. The song's hypnotic harmonies and dark dramatic beat matched the cinematic feel of the Batman franchise. For fans, it was an anthem of paranoia and trust. For Warner Bros., it was a perfect synergy between hip-hop and Hollywood. The single peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the rap charts, proving Bone Thugs' crossover power. It also set the stage for The Art of War itself, which dropped a month later. The second single, If I Could Teach the World, showcased a different side, where Look Into My Eyes was aggressive and paranoid. If I Could Teach the World was mournful and reflective. Bone rapped about violence, loss, and the dream of spreading peace through music. The video ended with a symbolic message and image. Bone standing in front of a burning world, preaching harmony in the middle of the chaos. It was the balance between warlike aggression and spiritual yearning that defined The Art of War. The singles weren't just promotional tools. They represented the duality at the heart of Bone's music. Street warriors with angelic harmonies torn between survival and salvation. Commercially, the strategy worked. The singles pushed the album to debut at number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling over 300,000 copies in the first week. Bone Thugs had once again proven they weren't just a niche act, they were a mainstream powerhouse. But success came with a cost. Behind the platinum sales and blockbuster singles, there was tension. With Ruthless Records, with rival rappers, and even within the group itself, The Art of War was more than an album title. For Bone, war was becoming their reality. Behind the production and polished singles, The Art of War carries something more explosive. This is Bone had watched as other rappers imitated a rapid-fire melodic style. For them, this album wasn't just music, it was retaliation. On World War I, Bone Thugs aimed their fire at 3 key rivals, Twista, 3-6 Mafia, and Westside Connection. Each feud had its roots in style, geography, and respect. First was Twista. The Chicago rapper was known for his lightning-fast flow, Bones saw him as an imitator, claiming he borrowed from the Cleveland-bred style. Tracks like Ready for War and Handle the Vibe carried thinly veiled shots at Twista and anyone trying to claim the fastest flow crown. Then there was 3-6 Mafia. Bone accused the Memphis crew for jacking their harmonized flow and dark occult influence themes. The back and forth was more than lyrical. It was a clash of regions, with Cleveland versus Memphis fighting for identity in the late 90s soundscape. And finally, Westside Connection. West Coast supergroup led by Ice Cube stood tall in LA. Bone felt Cube and company were disrespecting their artistry. It wasn't just Bones versus copycats, it was Bone versus the industry's heavyweights. For fans, these rivalries added layers to the album. The Art of War wasn't just music, it was an insider's playbook, a coded message broad of threats, warnings, and pride. Every diss solidified Bone's stands. They were the originators, not the imitators. But war always comes with a cost. Rivalries fueled the album's fire, but they also added to the chaos surrounding the group. As the Art of War stormed the charts, Bone had to face a reception, how the world would interpret their two-disc masterpiece. When the Art of War dropped on July 29th of 1997, it made history. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, selling over 394,000 copies in its first week. For both Thugs and Harmony, it was validation, proof they could follow up E! 1999 Eternal with another blockbuster. However, critics were divided. Some praised the ambition and the scope of the project, others called it bloated, too long, and weighed down by filler. Double album was always risked overstaying their welcome, and the Art of War was no exception. But for fans, especially those who lived and breathed Bone style, World War I stood out as the stronger disc. Songs like Handle the Vibe, Ready for War, and Look Into My Eyes carried the darker, sharper energy. It was a battle side of the double album, and the opening campaign and Bone's declaration of dominance. The album quickly went double platinum, cementing Bone as one of the most commercially successful groups of the 90s. But beyond sales, the legacy of World War I was in how it captured Bone at the crossroads. They were global superstars, but also embattled artists defending their originality. They were platinum-selling kings, but also warriors locked in feuds. In the end, World War I was more than just the first disc of a double album. It was Bone Thugs and Harmony at their peak, ambitious, combative, melodic, and misunderstood. It was a time capsule of hip-hop's most chaotic decade, a declaration of war from Cleveland's finest, forever etched into rap history. By 1998, Bone Thugs and Harmony were more than just chart toppers. They were a cultural force. The work on the Art of War, particularly World War I, had solidified their mainstream dominance, and the industry noticed. At the American Music Awards that year, in 1998, Bone Thugs took home the award for favorite rap hip-hop artist, beating out heavyweights like Wu-Tang Clan and Puff Daddy. Puff Daddy.
And the winner is
Bone Thugs and Harmony.
For Cleveland's finest, it wasn't just a trophy, it was validation. It was proof that their harmonized rapid-fire style could compete with and even surpass the biggest name in hip-hop at that time. The win symbolized more than popularity. It marked a shift in the hip-hop landscape. The Midwest, long overlooked, had proven it could produce innovators who weren't just musically unique, but commercially unstoppable. Bone Thugs had just won the battle in the boardroom, on the charts, and on the music award stage. One of the most powerful moments on the World War I album or the Art of War album, I don't know, you call it whatever you want. But one of the most powerful songs on the album was called Thug Love, a collaboration between Bone Thugs and Harmony and Tupac Shakur. Recorded during Tupac's final years, the track was more than just a feature. It was a unit between two worlds, the Midwest harmonizer and a West Coast icon known for his raw intensity. Thug Love combined Bone's signature rapid-fire melodic flows with Tupac's commanding aggressive delivery. Lyrically, it was a street anthem, loyalty, survival, and the call of the thug life. Every verse was a declaration. No matter the rivals or challenges, these artists were united in their struggle and their dominance. The song also carried weight because of Tupac's presence. By 1997, Tupac's legacy loomed large. His voice on Thug Love elevated the album's credibility and created one of hip-hop's iconic cross-regional collaborations. Fans saw it as a symbolic alliance. Bone Thugs weren't just Cleveland's finest. They were part of the national rap conversation, rubbing shoulders with legends. Beyond its commercial appeal, Thug Love embodied the spirit of the Art of War, strategic, aggressive, and united. It was a reminder that Bone Thugs weren't just responding to imitators or industry pressures. They were making moves alongside the greatest, asserting their rightful place in hip-hop history. Just weeks before the release of The Art of War, Bone Thugs and Harmony reached another historic milestone, featuring on the Notorious B.I.G's double album Life After Death on the track Notorious Thugs. The song was revolutionary and fire. I think it's one of the best songs on the album itself. If you haven't checked it out already or heard the album, I suggest you hear it. But back to the video. Here, the East Coast legend of Biggie Smalls adapted his flow to match Bone's rapid-fire melodic delivery, a rare moment of an established star beating Bone on their own terms. For fans and critics alike, it was proof that Bone Thug's style had not only crossed regional boundaries, but it demanded respect from the greatest of the East Coast. Notorious Thugs wasn't just a feature, it was a statement. In a year dominated by East Coast, West Coast tensions, this track bridged worlds. Cleveland's Bone Thugs held their own alongside Brooklyn's Kingpin, showing that their harmonies, speed, and street sensibility could command a national stage. This collaboration also elevated Bone Thugs' profile in the industry. Their inclusion on one of the most anticipated albums of the decade and their ability to outshine expectations solidified their reputation as innovators and collaborators who could dominate any coast, any stage, any track. Moments like these, Notorious Thugs, Thug Love, and May Victories were all building towards a legacy. World War I was just not an album. It was a battlefield where both thugs proved they could outshine rivals, collaborate with legends, and assert Cleveland's dominance on the global hip-hop map. The Art of War World War I marked a pivotal moment in Bone Thugs and Harmony's career. It was an album born from loss, rivalry, and ambition, a declaration of dominance, a battle cry, and a testament to innovation. From haunting production by DJ Unique to the groundbreaking collaboration with Biggie and Tupac Shakur. The album showcased Bone's ability to command both the streets and the charts. Commercially, it was a success. Critically, it was a device. But culturally, it cemented Bone Thugs as pioneers, innovators of a sound that influenced an entire generation of rappers. Their harmonies, rapid-fire flows, and dark cinematic production became a blueprint, proving that the Midwest could stand alongside New York and LA in shaping hip-hop's future.